Hello, my name is Hilary Rose and you're listening to Live Wild. On today's podcast, I talk to author, ecologist and presenter Anja Murray. We chat about her time as a government policy advisor, ecology and sustainability, and the little everyday changes we can make in our own lives.
Even 15 or 20 minutes in a natural environment, it lowers cortisol, which is our stress hormone, quite seriously lowers it. It reduces blood pressure, heart rate, and induces this sense of calm and well-being. So we have a really strong emotional response to being in nature, which is amazing. And it's things like the quality of the environment really matters as well. So if we're in like a park with some nice trees and a nice lawn and stuff, that's going to have some mental health benefits. But if you're in a diverse environment with a whole range of different plant species, different textures, different colors, maybe the dappled light coming in from trees above, the colors, the sounds, the pattern, the more diverse and rich the natural environment, the stronger those mental health benefits are.
All that and the pearls of wisdom in Anja's best-selling book, Wild Embrace. Anja Murray, thank you so much for joining me on the Live Wild podcast today. It's such a pleasure to have you here.
It's a pleasure to meet with you, Hilary, and talk to you.
I know. And we actually met a very long time ago at an event. And after that, you sent me your most beautiful book, which I love. It's called Wild Embrace. And I gobbled it up at the time. I really loved it. And then that was 2023, I believe. And then I picked it up again last month and I went, there's so much in this. There's so much more in this that I missed even the first time round. It feels like the book, you released it in March 2023?
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. And it feels like it's growing more now, 2 years later.
It's
Why
funny.
do you think that is?
Yeah, I guess it is. It's people are picking in chapter by chapter. It's not necessarily a linear read, and I guess recommending it to friends and things. It's just come out as well in paperback. So the original that you had was hardback. So I think there's been a bit more, like Hodges Figures have just made it the book of the month for February, which is amazing, and it is still getting traction 2 years later, which I'm obviously delighted about. Yeah, it's really nice to see it having this life of its own that I never thought of when I was writing it. It's funny because I didn't, you should be writing things for your audience and the readers. And it was only kind of towards the end when I was doing the edits that I kind of realized that was going to be very much the case. But I didn't think of it as having a life of its own out there, and each reader having its own relationship with Wild Embrace and the content, which is really lovely. I've got an amazing feedback through, people would contact me on Instagram or send me messages and tell me how it's influenced them and how their relationship with the natural world and how they are when they're out and about as well in nature. And that's been really, really lovely.
I'm not surprised by that at all. What inspired you to write the book? Is it your first book? It is your first book, isn't it? I believe.
It is my first book, yeah. I have been an ecologist and very into environmental conservation and doing a lot of policy and advocacy for nearly 20 years now, and kind of campaigning work. And I guess through a lot of working with the Irish Wildlife Trust and Antashka and Birdwatch Ireland and BirdLife Europe and lecturing as well in environmental policy, and realizing that we have these policies, we have laws. A lot of what I was doing was trying to get policymakers to implement those properly. But I started doing then the television work with I did Eco-Eye for 8 years. And realizing that a lot of people really do care deeply. There's so many initiatives around the country where people really, really care. But the wider picture, it's still not getting through, I guess, people's understanding of how the natural world works and resilience and the fact that so much of nature is really declining. We've 60% of our wild birds are red or amber listed, threatened, with extinction. A third of Ireland's wild bees are threatened with extinction. More than half of our rivers and our lakes are very polluted. And these messages weren't getting through. So I guess I realized I love doing this communications work, the television and the radio and the writing, and also that it's a really necessary piece. So we can have all the policy and legislation that we like, but when I guess the majority of the population aren't in love with the natural world and really appreciating what we have and why it's so important to save it, that we're not going to get anywhere really. So that's why I wrote Wild Embrace, to introduce people to ecology in an easy, accessible kind of way.
It feels like a grassroots movement, like it had to come from the ground up, not the top down. That's what it feels like. And I love that you have written it in that really easy, accessible way, and that you talk about invitations. And at the end of every chapter, there's an invitation for readers. And I'm going to give you an example of one, if that's okay now. Well, it's your book, you know it, but I'm going to read it for the readers. So this is the chapter towards the back of the book, and it's nature at nighttime. And one of your invitations is, during the summer months, go swimming after dark in waters filled with bioluminescent plankton. Every splash is like a Milky Way full of little stars. Bioluminescent plankton occurs regularly in Lough Ine, a marine sea loch in West Cork. Kayaking is another great way to experience this phenomenon. Every drop of water from the end of the paddle lights up. That's so beautiful. And it's
Have you ever been out with seeing those bioluminescence?
Yes, I do it regularly. Well, when I say regularly, when the opportunity arises. Now, I haven't done Lough Ine, but I actually camped in the Schemes in West Cork one summer. And at nighttime, I just went splashing in the tide, and it was all there. And down in Kerry as well, I spent a lot of time in Kerry, down the Derrynane direction, and they always, in the summertime, there's always bioluminescence. It's just so magical. It's incredible.
It really is. Yeah, I was down also in West Cork last summer for a week, and we went swimming in this little cove each evening, and it's so magical. It is one of the most incredible experiences to go in and see your feet lighting up, and then as you swim, each splash.
It's so cool. It's like what you see in Avatar, but it's real. It's incredible.
Yeah.
The whole book is very gentle, very poetic. You can see your absolute adoration of nature in it. Have you always been that way since you were a child, or did you come to it a little bit later?
No, I did. I grew up, I would say, feral in the Wicklow Mountains.
Yes, I love that
we were let run free. Just had to be in for dinner at 6:00. But yeah, with lots of brothers and sisters, and literally climbing trees, making huts and dens in hedges. There was a lake nearby, playing down at the shores of the lake and digging up clay, and yeah, just that time to. I think kids have that a lot less now today as well. Having that free time to just be creative, curious, explore in nature. I grew up very much immersed in nature. Though, I mean, I didn't know necessarily the names of trees or plants. I wasn't one of those kind of avid scientists who was painting nail polish on snails or ants or things that you hear about. The science piece came later.
I couldn't agree more about children currently not having that freedom. I see it with my own kids. Like, there's a certain amount of I suppose there's a safety aspect that our parents were more flexible back then, because I had loads of freedom. I had a ton of freedom. I mean, my mother would never know where I was, I'd be in farmyards, and my happy place was up a tree, So, but I think, these days kids just have that less of that. So it's a shame in a sense, but I feel like they will come to it at some point in their lives. It's inherent that they do it,
Yeah, it's really important for children's growth and development to be out in nature. But it's funny because people would often, when they discover what I do, they have this assumption that, it's for kids. I'm like, no, it's not for
my
kids.
Goodness, no.
It's for grown-ups. Like, we all need to spend time in nature and reconnect and, cultivate our curiosity and all of that. It's for grown-ups too, and it's massive benefits, not just for children, but again, for the mental health benefits of spending time in nature are absolutely massive.
Let's talk about that for a minute. I think during the pandemic, I think people really, myself included, just wanted to be back out in nature, wanted to immerse ourselves. That's why I created the brand, Live Wild, because I was like, right, okay,
Mhm.
I'm going back to nature because I know that it's safe there, that I'm held there, that it has everything for us. And there's a connection that just really, really called me.
Yeah.
What do you think it actually does? What do you think? Why? I mean, I know the Japanese call it, is it Shinrin Yoku? They was forest bathing, I think they call it.
Forest bathing. Yeah.
Yeah, but anything, even like putting your bare feet on grass or putting your hands in the earth or
Yeah.
listening to bird song, what do you think it actually does for us?
There's quite a lot of research now in the last 10 years or so. Psychologists are looking into the benefits of time in nature, even 15 or 20 minutes in a natural
Mm,
environment. It lowers cortisol, which is our stress hormone, quite
mm,
seriously lowers it. It reduces blood pressure, heart rate, and induces this sense of calm and well-being. So we have a really strong emotional response to being
mm,
in nature, which is amazing. And it's things like the quality of the environment really matters as well. So if we're in like a park with some nice trees and a nice lawn and stuff, yeah, okay, that's going to have some mental health benefits. But if you're in a like a diverse environment with a whole range of different plant species, different textures, different
mm,
colors, maybe the dappled light coming in from trees above, the colors, the sounds, the pattern, the more diverse and rich the natural environment, the stronger those mental health benefits are, which is
mm.
really amazing because it points to how many of us spend time in these kind of quite manicured
Yeah.
natural environments. There's a big difference between being in a green field, we'll say, a kind of a more intensively managed field, and a species rich, semi natural meadow that has, 60 different flowering plants in it, and the textures and the color, and there's so much more going on there. Um, and yeah, we're genetically, like, we've evolved in trees and in woodlands and in natural environments. We're not, we're not genetically predisposed to be in these concrete spaces
Mm,
with so little, life and color and texture. So the corollary of spending time in nature being good for our mental health is that when we spend too much time in man-made environments with concrete and square lines and straight lines, that can induce quite a lot of anxiety, and that says a lot
mm,
for urban living as well, and inner city areas and areas which have really low green cover. So yeah,
that's
it's something we tend to overlook when we talk about our health and our well-being.
mm. In one article I read where you were being interviewed, and you spoke as well about um, how nature helped you deal with grief surrounding the loss of your mum, and there was very tangled emotions in the heart and the mind. How do you think it did that?
Yeah, that's so. There's one particular place where I go to and spend a lot of time up in West Cavan. And my mum she'd gotten cancer, and she
Mm,
was very unwell. It was about 4 months of being very unwell, from like getting sick to dying.
mm,
So we were able to look after her at home, which was wonderful to be able to do that with the palliative care supports. But obviously it was really, really, really hard. So I mean, I was not
yeah,
just emotionally grieving, but really, really exhausted, really
yeah.
worn down from the whole thing. And I remember going back to that woodland and spending time there and just feeling my body settle and calm, and just
Mm,
feeling that, literally your whole body just ease returning. And it was the
mm,
first time that I'd felt ease come back and return. So I started going every day and spending
beautiful.
time there. And it really made a huge difference to me with the
Mm,
grief and coming back into myself.
mm. And I suppose, in a sense, I mean, I understand that completely as well. But I suppose, in a sense, being in nature helps us understand the cycles of life in a much more intrinsic way that perhaps we are now kind of removed from, and the cycles of life being death and rebirth and everything that goes with it. Like, I sometimes I feel like the way we've come away from nature has separated us from the understanding of those cycles, and it's made it harder for us to deal with.
Absolutely. Yeah, I was in I was in Connemara this time last year for a few weeks, minding a friend's dog. It was really gorgeous,
Mm.
and got to spend time walking the coast every day with the dog. But there was a dead dolphin washed up on the shore, and actually
Mm.
watching it decompose day after
Mm.
day. I found a dead seabird, and it was ringed, and I discovered its story. But it was like the couple of weeks that I was there were filled with dead things, finding dead things, watching,
Wow.
and
Yeah.
it was quite amazing. And that also, like, I processed again my dad dying. He died
Mm.
10 years ago, but that came up in just watching that cycle of life. And that was
Yeah.
kind of around this time of year. It's just before there's a lot more death, obviously, in winter, and then
Mm.
spring we've got the return of new life. And the old Celtic calendar is great at marking the dormancy, the time of death and dormancy and decay, and then
Mm.
the time of spring and rebirth and new life. Yeah, nature is all about cycles, death and
Mm.
dying, and recycling and coming back.
Which is so beautiful, and like obviously gives people hope. Anyone listening, that there's hope and that there is joy as well after grief, and it's reflected everywhere around us. I feel like there's a huge amount of worry and a feeling of helplessness surrounding people that are really concerned with our planet. I mean, it's called eco anxiety. What are the simple things that people can do to feel more empowered about their situation? Not feel overwhelmed by it, because it's such a huge task that we have ahead of us.
Yeah, it really is. Like, as I said before, the connection is so important.
Mm.
To connect with, and everybody has their own different preferences. So for some people it's maybe the seashore. For me, I particularly like woodland habitats, where you feel immersed and in
Yeah.
in the habitat. You're surrounded. um but the connection part is really important, and I always describe it as what we need to do to I get past the overwhelm, the
Mm.
anxiety. We know that things are terrible. Most of us are actually not even fully aware of just how terrible, how much decline in the health of the natural environment, even in Ireland, which we think of as being, relatively healthy, green,
Mm.
land. There's really massive, massive declines in so many different species groups. But the way that I describe as connecting is like a three-legged stool. And in a three-legged stool, if you're missing one leg, it's going to fall over. So
Mm.
wonder, knowledge, and action. So there's a bit of that awe and that wonder and that spending time peering into a foxglove flower and seeing the
Yeah.
pattern. It's like a landing pad for the bees to land into the foxglove flower, or examining a lichen or a moss with a magnifying glass or a hand lens and seeing the fractal patterns, and
Mm.
wow. Or the phosphorescence, the bioluminescent plankton in the
Yeah.
sea. Like, there's so much wonder there. And that's really important because that nourishes us, that helps us to carry on. And, when you're feeling low about everything, is
Mm.
to I guess, remind ourselves of the wonders
Mm.
within nature. And they don't have to be in faraway exotic places either. It can be, the moss on your doorstep. Um, and then the other bit is knowledge. So
Mhm.
the second leg of the stool would say is that actually having a little bit of knowledge of different types of species and habitats in
Mm.
Ireland, reading up maybe the history, or again, whatever piques your particular interest. Um, but that it's not just the kind of fluffy, wow, isn't nature great? I think we could all do with enhancing our knowledge and our understanding of what's going on in the natural world. Um, and then the third leg is action. So there's a
Mm.
lot of psychological work that has gone into the importance of taking action. When we do nothing, it's very disempowering. And when we take action,
Mm.
ideally with a group, so with a community group, there's kind of a trees campaign here locally that I'm involved in, trying to get more trees planted by the council in the neighbourhood. Um, Taking some action is really empowering, and it does help us to overcome this feeling of it's all too big. I'm just one person. I can't do
Mm.
anything to change anything. So yeah,
Mm.
wonder, knowledge, and action would be is my little formula for
Wonder,
dealing.
knowledge, and action.
Um,
I love that. Yeah.
mm,
let's go back to the book for a little bit and about the gentle invitation. We kind of touched on it earlier, right? And it's the gentle invitation feels like it's different from when you were trying to bring about policy change at a government level. Did you feel like you were just kind of banging your head off a wall a little bit and you just had to do a complete different approach?
That's exactly the term I use, like banging my head off the wall.
Okay.
It's important, and it's important work, and it's necessary. It's a necessary piece. So we need the scientific researchers informing us and informing policy. Then we need the campaigners. We need the organisations. Like there's a lot of really wonderful environmental NGOs in Ireland. I mentioned those at the back of the book. A list of those to join, like Birdwatch Ireland and the Irish Wildlife Trust and An Taisce, the National Trust for Ireland, and lots of organisations who are campaigning for better policies to protect the natural environment. Because I mean, it's not, we can't all do this in a piecemeal way. It has to be directed by government, and there has to be top-down action. So that work is important. But yeah, I had been doing that for about 15 years. And talking to civil servants and having the same conversations and going in and saying, you know, curlew are like declining by 60, 70%, and then going in every year, you know, and then 7 years later, we have a 95% decline in curlew and breeding curlew in Ireland.
Wow.
And very, very little had changed in terms of the policies that we were looking for. And then I go out and about and people haven't heard of breeding curlew, or they're not aware of the conservation threats. So realizing that we do need a greater public momentum. But yes, it was like banging my head off a wall. You make small gains, which is good.
Like what? What kind of gains do you
work.
think that, like during that period, what kind of gains do you feel like you made?
Well, one of the big areas that I worked in was the Habitats Directive and the Birds Directive. So these are European environmental directives that each member state has to comply with, has to kind of reinterpret specific to Ireland. So we would have protected areas, special areas of conservation under the Habitats Directive, and special protection area for birds under the Birds Directive. And there's quite a strict approach procedures. So if somebody wants to, let's say, build a hotel in an SAC, in a special area of conservation, they would have to go through a procedure whereby the impact of that hotel is assessed on the species and habitats for which that place is designated. The same would be true for a road, like the Kildare bypass. There was a big issue over that years and years ago, 20 years ago or more. But there's often a conflict that arises. But what the Irish government had done was just ignored those procedures completely. Didn't even do the assessments to find out would the species or the habitats for which those sites were designated would be impacted. They just go ahead with it.
Crikey.
You know, and we had like politicians like Bertie Ahern saying, you know, we can't be held up by swans and snails.
Oh my goodness.
And this was, I guess, our values as a nation was these bloody tree huggers holding up development, and how dare they? So there was a massive breach of European environmental law, and it was widespread in Ireland. So what I would have done with An Taisce and with Birdwatch Ireland as well was collating really solid examples of where environmental law wasn't being implemented. And bringing that to conferences, and bringing that up in European forums as well, bringing that awareness to politicians here as well as civil servants, and making a really strong legal case for that. So now those procedures are very much followed. There are still problems, but for developments in SACs or SPAs or near SACs or SPAs, they do go through this procedure of assessing the proposed development for impacts. And then there's either it doesn't proceed if the impacts are going to be really negative, or there'd be mitigation where it's carried out in such a way that it doesn't impact those habitats or species. So I mean that's one thing that has improved
Anja.
quite a lot.
Yeah, that's huge, Anja. That's incredible. To have taken that on as well is really remarkable.
And the NGOs are still doing that work, you know. There's a lot of good organizations still doing that really important work. And we wouldn't get anywhere without that advocacy piece, you know.
So, okay, you have been given a magic wand. Okay, you have all the power. right now, what are the top 5 changes you'd implement across Ireland, and why? And we can get into it. So you've got the magic wand. You're in power. What are the top 5 things you would immediately do right now to try?
Off the top of my head.
Yeah. Hey, if you're enjoying this podcast and you'd like to show us your support, if you like, you could buy us a coffee using the Buy Me a Coffee app or online at buymeacoffee.com/livewildpodcast, or just click the link in our show notes. It will take you there. Alternatively, you could like, subscribe, or share the show with your mates or on social media. It really helps us bring you the very best show. Thank you so much for your help.
I don't spend a bit of time thinking about that. One would be we kind of normalize. So you have these, let's say the festivals like Kilconomics or the McGill Summer School or places like that, and it's quite normal that public thinkers, all sorts of people, politicians and writers and people would go to these and spend a week immersed in topics of interest. Wouldn't it be great if we had one that was a week or a 10-day long environmental summer school?
Oh, yes.
For grown-ups, for politicians, yes. For writers, for journalists, for anybody who wanted to. That would be a nice nature connection and education for grown-ups.
Eco summer school for grown-ups. Okay, I'm making a note of this. Okay, yeah. That's number one. So wow.
I mean,
I'd be there. I'll be your first one to go. I'll buy a ticket.
Great, Hilary. Well, we'll give you more than that. We'll get you emceeing or something.
Oh, I'd love it. I would absolutely love that. Okay, so that's number one. You've got your eco summer school for adults. Okay.
Yeah, that's.
I think that would fill up. I think you'd be surprised. I actually think you were onto something here.
You reckon?
Yeah, honestly.
It would be good. Yeah. And you could make it pleasant and educational, and because it's about shifting values. I think a lot of what we need to do is shifting values, and that happens through reading, but also through people having collective experiences and peer learning. So if we're together with our peers, and we're assessing and discussing our values and becoming more conscious.
Incredible! I really think you're onto something. Okay, number 2.
Okay, that'll be one task.
Yeah, that's one task you have to tackle now this year.
Education. I know that it's if we like the challenges that we're facing, we don't have time. We don't have 20 years to wait for things to turn around. We can't wait for the current cohort of 10-year-olds to be in power. But in saying that, it's never too late, and I would look at integrating environmental education throughout the curriculum. So it's not that it's just one subject that would be integrated throughout history, geography, maths, languages.
Amazing.
Because at the moment it's still kind of seen as a bit of a niche thing. Nature, environment, whether it's climate or natural environment or water, or how our different ecosystems work. I would love to see that integrated throughout the educational curriculum. What else would I do? I would love to see, and this has started to happen over the last 5 years. I'd love to see more integration with environmental subjects in the arts.
Yeah, amazing.
And again, that's how we shape our values, with a lot of social change over the centuries, from women looking for voting rights, and many of our social issues, they have come about because we have artists singing about them, speaking about these issues, calling for change in values. So yeah, I'd love to see more integration in the arts.
That's amazing. And I think that there'd be massive uptake in that. I think all you have to say is the magic word, funding, and there would be so much uptake. And artists, generally want to produce work like that. I think a lot of artists, I suppose, think outside the box a little bit and have free time actually and tend
Yeah.
to spend free time in nature. So I think there'd be massive uptake for that. All right.
Mm.
So we've got artist grants
Yeah. Yeah.
and
Artist grants,
integration.
education. Another thing I would do is greening our urban areas.
Mm.
Um,
Mm.
so I would put massive funding into improving the people's access to nature,
Yes.
especially communities that have a very limited access to nature, you know?
Mm. Mm-hmm.
So whether it's inner cities or outer suburbs where there's sprawling housing estates and one middle sterile patch of green and a football field in the middle,
Mm.
a lot of people now just don't have the access to nature.
Mm.
And that's,
How would you do it? How would you do it? What, like if so say you had a housing estate
yeah.
and like you said you've got your pitch in the middle and the bit of green or whatever. If you were to redesign just even a simple housing estate, what would you implement there just to try and do that?
Well, people do need play areas and people do need, you know, places
Yeah.
to uh, play hurling, play football, whatever it is,
Mm.
and play areas and playgrounds. But to have small patches of woodlands, to have wildflower meadows, to see those textures and colors,
Mm.
um, to have safe recreational spaces. You know, there's kind of bits of wasteland that might be somewhere behind the housing estate that's
Yeah.
like the old quarry. Um,
That
for
could
those
almost be
areas.
be reforested, I guess, you know.
Yep, yep. So to find whatever opportunities there are to rewild areas around
Mm.
the housing estate and provide access.
Mm.
Again, it's you know, socioeconomic. You have to be somewhat well off to have the car to be able to drive out into natural spaces to take that time off. You know, it
Yeah.
shouldn't be that people are that it's so challenging that it's so difficult to access nature.
Mm. Because nature, I mean, it springs up everywhere given the opportunity as well. It will
Yeah.
thrive.
Yeah.
There was a beautiful little project in Cork city centre. I think it's actually gone now, and it was a derelict building that had been reduced to rubble, and somebody took it over. Just that plot, it was a tiny plot, and just started to introduce growing veg, and it was more of a curated rather than a wild space, but it just showed what you can do in the city centre, right
Um,
in the heart of Cork, just to kind of have that little bit of green. It was really interesting to see, and I think it's gone
yeah.
now. It's a shame. I want to go back
Yeah,
to
so
actually the
food areas and you know, community gardens where you're growing food, allotments, but
yeah,
also street trees. It doesn't have to, you know, we are terrible in Dublin for street trees. A lot of Irish cities are really lacking street trees. It's only in the more affluent areas that we
yeah.
have good street trees.
I always wonder about this. It's a very little childlike notion that I have, but I always, again, when I'm driving through the city, which isn't very often, but any of the cities like that, I wonder, okay, why aren't there more trees? Because they will do
Mm.
okay in the city. And why aren't there fruit trees? Why don't we have the city lined with fruit trees that we can all enjoy when harvest time comes? I just don't understand it. There could be free food hanging from the trees every
I
year.
know.
Why isn't it done?
Yeah, there's one the Eco Village in Clough in Tipperary,
Yes.
which is an intentional community, and it's a wonderful place. I don't know if you've been down. They've
Haven't, but
planted
I've looked at it. Yeah.
loads, yeah, they've planted apple trees. So they have
Love
this
it.
massive glut of apples each autumn, and they have a kind of a community apple press, and yeah, they preserve apple juice, and it's amazing. We could have
It's
so many apple trees everywhere, edible wonderful
everywhere.
food. Plum trees. I have a couple of
Plum
plum
trees.
trees in the garden and like 3 plum trees, and I cannot get over the quantity of these
Yeah.
gorgeous, sweet, ripe, juicy plums. Like I make plum jam, I make plum
Yeah.
wine, I bring
Wow.
boxes of fresh plums to all my neighbors from 3 plum trees that I planted 10 years ago.
It's incredible. And pear trees as well. And again, why isn't every housing estate covered in them? If you do have those green areas and there's a few trees, why
Yeah,
not sprinkle a few more in there and have loads of apples and pears and plums?
yeah,
And like you said, it's a community effort then because one person can't eat it all. So you have to say, okay, let's all come together and this, do something with this amazing produce.
yeah.
Yeah,
And
it always bugs me.
Fruit
Sorry, go
trees
ahead,
are
Anya.
also wonderful for pollinators. So
Yes.
all that apple blossom and pear blossom and cherry blossom are really good for pollinators. Now, I don't mean actually the ornamental cherry blossom from the early flowering cherries. They're not so great for pollinators here.
Mm.
They're Japanese cherry plum. But apple trees, apple is a native species. Our crab apple is a native species. So the apple blossom on the cultivated apple trees is really good for bees. They get a lot of pollen and nectar in the spring when they need it most.
I feel like as well there's a whole culture lost of like what to do with those fruits and everything that's available to us. The foraging culture, which I love. I think if there was more knowledge about the herbs that are available and the fruits
Yeah.
that are available to us, and even the saps of trees, the barks of trees, pollen from the trees. There's I in my area there's a couple of really, really beautiful oh my goodness. The Americans call them tulip trees. Why is the word gone from me? They come out in springtime with the blossoms.
With those big chunky flowers and they're
Yeah.
edible.
Yes. Hang on. I'm
Yes.
going to look up tulip tree because it's going to bother
Magnolia.
me now. Thank you. Magnolia. That's it. Magnolia. And yeah, you can make jam. And you can eat the leaves or the petals
Petals.
of the yeah, and they taste kind of like sweet and gingery. It's so
I was
beautiful.
just going to say, ginger. A friend only showed me this about 2 years ago, and it was
Yeah,
great fun. Yeah, I have great fun with that now, picking magnolia blossoms and feeding them to people. And they're going, what?
totally. It's exactly.
And
It's
this
so
spicy
gorgeous.
gingeriness. Yeah.
Yeah, and there's another one. I think it's I can't remember the name of it, but it's a deer antler is the kind of nickname for the tree. And every September there's like a kind of a powder on it that's a kind of a spicy powder, and it's beautiful. Sumac. It's a
Mm,
sumac tree. That's what it is.
that's right. They
Yeah,
are
deer.
beautiful and they grow quite well here. Yeah.
Yeah, so there's, I think if there was more of an awareness of what's around us and how it can be utilized, I think people actually probably would appreciate it a little bit more. Not to say that they're only appreciating it just because it's of use, but I think it comes back to your knowledge, one of your three pillars in
Yeah.
your stools.
Yeah, I have one
Um,
chapter in Wild Embrace about foraging, and it's for
oh,
for the kind of species that are commonly occurring and easy to forage in our everyday lives. And
mm,
soon, nettles. It's nettle season, so there's this old Cavan
yes.
tradition of making nettle soup at least 3 times during Lent.
Oh, I didn't know that. Three
Yeah,
times between Lent. Okay, because
yeah.
they say if you have nettle soup, you won't have a cough or a cold for the rest of the year.
That's right. And 3 times during Lent, I think that's kind of cleansing and it's rich in iron and it cleanses the blood.
Mm.
And it's supposed to be a really good thing to have to set you up then for the rest of the year to have nettle soup 3 times during Lent.
What
So,
way
yeah.
do you
And
make it? Do you make it yourself?
I do. I love making nettle soup. I put in a little bit of potato, a little bit of stock,
Mm.
whiz it up. It's actually very easy and very, very tasty. And you just pick the top little bits, the top kind of 2 forks of leaves, the
Ah,
youngest, freshest ones.
okay. How do you do it without stinging yourself?
I would get like a colander and a scissors and
Oh, of
just snip
course.
off the top straight into the colander. You can also
Ah,
use rubber gloves.
yeah. I did look up how to de-sting a nettle, and I've managed to do it, but it's not. I haven't been very successful with de-stinging nettles. You always get caught.
You do, you do. There's another treatment, my sister-in-law has spoken about. People used to like beat themselves with
Yes,
nettles because it triggers I think
histamine.
yeah, our histamine response. So it's a good natural kind of anti-inflammatory.
Correct. I've read that only recently. Yeah, and it's so if you have any, say, swollen joints or anything like that, that you just lash yourself with nettles. I mean, I'm not going to do it,
Yeah,
but
I've
for
never tried.
those.
Yeah, yeah. But foraging is a lovely thing to do, not just for what you get from the plant.
Yes,
Um,
agreed.
but there's so many times when I might be just picking sloes to make some sloe gin or
Mm,
picking blackberries to eat or make jam. But the fact that you're purposeful and you're going really slowly and you're lingering, you're noticing so much more.
mm,
And so many
mm.
of us just don't slow down. Like when we're out in nature, we're doing something or we're thinking something or we're going somewhere or we don't just turn off and tune into what we're seeing, what we're hearing, what we're smelling. And foraging actually really helps to do that because it's slow and mindful and purposeful. And that brings me on to the next thing of what would I do instantly?
Yes.
4-day working week.
Oh, thank you. Oh, I'll take it.
To give us all a chance to have that time for nature connection, or whatever it is we want to do, but we're not as fast paced. And maybe that would help us shift our values to always being about being busy, earning more money, consuming too much. So 4-day working week, I think, would really help us all to slow down and be a bit more mindful and go through life more consciously.
Agreed. Anja has the magic wand, and she said it would be our adult eco summer school is number 1. Number 2, education across the board. Number 3, artist. We'll call it artist bursaries or artist integration. I really like that one actually, because just as we were finishing up talking about that, I thought of the term, the trickle down effect. And the trickle down effect is, I think it's actually an economic term rather than an.
It is. Yeah.
A term is it? Yeah, a term for artists. But I always reframe it from an artist perspective. And as an artist, if you're creating something, you kind of have a bit of a responsibility around that creation as well, because what you put out there, it has a trickle down effect. So as an audience member, maybe going to a show or going to an exhibition or something, whether they consciously or subconsciously know it, they're taking away a piece of that information and that message that you as the artist has put up there, and they take it home and then they implement it in their daily lives, whether it's conscious or subconscious, and that's the trickle down effect. So I think, yes, if we start looking at artists and using the magic word of funding, we could have some really interesting trickle-down effects surrounding.
The values embedded in the arts are really how we shape our values as a society.
And reflective of them, yeah. Okay, number 4, it was about, we took the example of rewilding any patches of land around housing estates or urban areas, and just trying to, and growing our fruit trees. I really think there's something to that as well.
Yep.
How amazing would that be to just say, okay, we're just going to take that patch of land and put a lot of, fruit trees in there and just leave them do their thing. Incredible. And number 5, what was number 5 again? Oh, hang on.
4-day working week.
Oh, yes. Thank you. Our 4-day working week. I know. The most important one. Again, to do that, to like, if you had your 4-day working week, you could literally go, okay, I'm going to dedicate that day to contacting the council and getting our fruit trees going. So there you go. It is that important. I love it. And yet, I mean, most people know you from obviously all the amazing work that you've done, Lyric FM as well. It's some beautiful work. But you also did RTE's Eco Eye, like you mentioned earlier. You must have been so proud to have been part of a show that I think really blazed a trail before these topics became hot topics, What was it like being on the show?
Yeah, I absolutely loved it. So from the beginning, when I was invited to go and do a bit and try it out, we get to go and visit the most amazing places, like really stunning locations, meet inspiring people, meet community groups who are, blazing a trail. And again, when we talked about, me having spent years doing policy and advocacy and banging my head off a wall, going out and meeting community groups or conservation actions or experts who are, doing something amazing. Because a lot of what we did in Eco Eye, I guess the ethos was, you can't just spend a whole half-hour television program telling people how bad everything is. Yeah. So you might spend the first kind of 5 minutes or so doing that to set up the context. And then the remainder of the program would be looking at solutions, ways that different kinds of people are addressing these challenges, and they're doing it in all sorts of different ways. So I would get to go and meet really inspiring projects all over Ireland, people doing inspiring projects in gorgeous locations. And then the most fun bit is I would get to ask lots of stupid questions on behalf of the viewer, of course. why are you doing that? How did you come up with that idea?
Yeah.
How did you get involved? And, just fire all the questions at them to kind of get them explaining it. So I absolutely loved it. Yeah, it was in my element doing that for 8 years.
Wow.
It was good
21
fun.
seasons of it, Anja. That's such a remarkable show.
Yes, so Duncan Stewart would have been running with it for a good kind of 10 or 12 years before I came on board. And then I was brought on board to kind of cover the natural environment side of things, water quality and nature. And it was it's the longest running environmental show and massively watched as well. It's such a disappointment when it ended there. Yeah, 2 years ago.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I feel like it was the wrong time. I feel like there's such a huge appetite for it, even more so now, even though it's only, gone a year and a half or 2 years. I feel like there's a huge, do you think it could come back in another shape or form, maybe?
Well, there was an independent production company, Earth Horizon Productions, who are absolutely brilliant, a very small, dedicated team. So a lot of expertise built up within that. So they have had to wrap up as well. So I don't know. There's certainly, if there was an appetite and if there was funding, because that was the problem, was the funding was cut, it would certainly, we'd be able to get it back up and running. Yeah.
Well, fingers crossed that it may happen at some point, because it feels like it's absolutely necessary for, at the moment and always, to be honest.
Yeah.
Anja, so congratulations on the book. Would you do you have a copy in front of you?
Thank you, Hilary. I do. I have the original looked marked, and then I've got the new paperback. Ooh.
I love it. Would you like to read, because I always find reading this poem at the start is so important. It really sets the tone for the whole book. Would you like to read it?
I'd love to. Thank you, Hilary. This is a poem by a Welsh nature poet, W.H. Davies, written in 1911. And it's called Leisure. What is this life if, full of care, we have no time to stand and stare, no time to stand beneath the boughs and stare as long as sheep or cows, no time to see when woods we pass, where squirrels hide their nuts in grass, no time to see in broad daylight streams full of stars like skies at night, no time to turn at beauty's glance and watch her feet, how they can dance, no time to wait till her mouth can enrich that smile her eyes began. A poor life this, if, full of care, we have no time to stand and stare.
So gorgeous.
I was so delighted to find that poem. It was actually suggested to me at the beginning, because it really embodies all that I had tried to communicate in the book. Is just take time to get absorbed in the wonders of nature that are all around us, to just stop, to stare, to get lost in thought. And that's,
very important. Well, it's my invitation. It's for the listeners to grab a copy of Wild Embrace. It's really, really beautiful. You won't regret it. Before we go, Anja, this is the Live Wild podcast. So I do the Live Wild quick fire round. Are you ready for it?
Okay, I am. Yeah.
Okay. Do you believe in magic?
Yes.
What is your favorite tree?
Hazel.
Oh, animal? Favorite animal?
Butterfly.
Oh, yes. If you could distill yourself down to an essence, what would that essence be?
Oh, that's a good one. Could I say cardamom?
Oh, nice. Oh, that's so nice. What's the wildest thing you've ever done?
The wildest thing I've ever done? Wow. How do we define wild? I went paragliding.
Nice.
Flying.
And scary.
That was wild.
What's
the most exciting thing I've ever done, anyway?
Yeah, absolutely. What's the one thing you do to help you live? What's the one thing you do every day to help you live wild and free?
Time in nature. Staring up at a canopy of a tree.
Amazing. Anja Murray, thank you so much for being on the Live Well podcast. I really appreciate the chat today.
Thank you so much, Hilary. It's been gorgeous chatting with you.
It's been lovely. 4-day work week, everybody. Let's just bring that one to the light. Thank you so much. Thank you for being here. We hope you enjoyed listening as much as we enjoyed making these episodes. Thank you, as always, to our amazing guests. A special thank you to Aoife McNamara, my co-producer extraordinaire from Imagine Media. Please like, share, subscribe, and rate us. It all really helps. And remember, this content is for education and entertainment purposes. In short, it's not gospel. I always say, take what resonates with you and leave the rest. Always question everything and do your own research.